Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So if your Peter Stitch account feels messy, there's a very high chance you're not using groups properly. Most coaches treat groups like folders. They're not. Groups are the control center of your entire coaching business. Programs deliver workouts, but groups control onboarding, automation, check-ins, resources, client access, progression timing, and your entire content and program delivery. And if you don't understand how groups actually work, your setup will always feel heavier than it needs to. So in this video, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about groups in PT Distinction, what they actually do, how I structure them for me and my clients, the most important or most common mistakes I see, and how to use them properly if you want your coaching to scale without chaos. So let's jump inside PT Distinction and I'll show exactly how to structure and use the groups in PT Distinction. All right, so here we are inside PT Distinction. When I build a PT Distinction system for serious online coaching businesses, I don't just create random groups. I use a layered structure. And there are some core group types that I build almost every single time. But first of all, let's go and find out where groups actually are in PT Distinction. So to find your groups, you're going to head to the group section up here. Now, before we dig into those different layers of groups and structure that I'll be talking about, let's just explain exactly what a group is. A group is a way of organizing things inside PT Distinction. You can organize content, workouts, check-ins, forms, or anything along those lines. You can organize tracking. You can also organize clients. You can also organize chats and create things like group chats. Now, there are two fundamental types of groups in PT Distinction. The first groups, if you like, or fundamental groups, are your system groups, and you'll find them at the top up here. So we have three system groups that organize all your clients, all active clients, and all inactive clients. Now, these system groups will automatically update as you sign up a new client, as you move a client from active to inactive, or from inactive to active. It will automatically organize things. Now, you can actually use these groups in exactly the same way as use any group, apart from you cannot change the name of the group and you cannot change that automation that happens. Other than that, it can work in exactly the same way. When it comes to a normal group or a non-system group, that's what you see down here. And you'll actually see, especially in this account, there's lots of different groups that you can have. Now, I want to talk about the different types of groups, how I'd structure them, and how I would use them inside PT Distinction. Now, you can, of course, take everything and put it all into one group if that's what you want to go and do. Nothing wrong with doing that. However, it does really limit things. So, for example, if you wanted to offer, say, a 12-week program or a 12-month program, you could put everything inside one group and deliver it. So, for example, I'll show you down here, it's one I made earlier. We have a 12-month nutritional coaching content program. And inside here, this entire program has all the coaching content for the entire year added in, like coaching modules, guides, and so on, just drip feeding out to the clients with all the habits. So you can throw everything in there. You could put in workouts in there. You could put everything in that particular group if you wanted to. Nothing wrong with doing that at all. Now, the biggest issue you're going to have if you do that is that limitation. It's the fact that you can't adapt things quickly, you can't adjust things quickly, and it's going to really limit what you can actually do with the software and use it to its full advantage. So what I recommend you do is actually use multiple groups and give them different structures. And that allows us to use a technique called group stacking. Group stacking allows you to stack multiple groups on top of each other. So you might be thinking, well, Ash, I don't want to put loads of groups in for a client because the client doesn't understand groups. They're not going to know what it means if you have one group for this, one group for that. Don't worry. Your clients will have no idea they're part of multiple groups. Groups is literally just a way of organizing and delivering things to your clients. That's literally all it is. So unless you tell them, they'll have no idea they're part of these particular groups. Now, the best way to think about groups is you can put content in them. So if we have a look at this one here, which is a lead magnet group, inside this one here, you can see we have some workout programs in there, coaching programs, and so on. So this is kind of like a pre-built one that I talked about. You can add a client to this particular group, and everything inside this group, the content, any forms, any habits, tracking, programs, assessments, even emails that are all scheduled out, can be delivered automatically to the client. So everything in there gets copied into the client's account. Now, copy is the key word. It's copied into the account, which means once it's in their account, you can edit, adapt it, and adjust it for that individual. And it won't affect anyone else as part of that particular group, which is a good thing. Now, the other thing you can do with side groups is once you're in a group, if you make edits and changes to this group and say this group has, say, 5 members in it or 5 clients in it, then any updates you make in this group will then update for those individual clients that are part of that group who are a current member. This is why group stacking is really important, because you can add and remove people from these groups depending how you want to adapt and adjust stuff. Now, you'll also notice in groups as well, unlike you will see with a client, is that you have the schedule, which of course you get with the client, but you get two options. You have the option of calendar dates and days after joining. So for an individual client, when you're building stuff out in their account, you'll do things by date. It means something happens on a particular date, something goes live and visible on a particular date, something is scheduled on a particular date where they get notifications and so on. With groups, you can do that, but bear in mind if the date has passed, then it's in the past, which means they won't get notifications, they won't see it, and so on. Or if you're using emails or in-app messages, they won't get triggered because the trigger date is in the past and it's already gone. So what we can also do is use this option called days after joining. Days after joining is simply just the number of days that have passed since being added to that particular group. And that's the key thing. It's that particular group, not when you added them to Peter Distinction, not when they joined up, not when they filled in the package or anything like that. It's when you or the system, if you're using packages for automation, adds them to that particular group. And again, this is why group stacking is particularly useful. It means we can add somebody to a group the day they sign up. That would make day zero on that day. But let's say, for example, we're running a 12-week coaching program and we want to have a check-in that always falls on the weekend. We can say, right, we can have a check-in group and we can put things in that group based on days after joining, but we don't have day zero start until the first Saturday after they sign up. So we can use multiple groups stacked together to decide how and when things are delivered to the individual clients. Really important thing to note. Okay, so we understand there the basics of the groups and kind of the basic things that it does. So let's look at the different types of groups that you might set up, these core group types that I build almost every time for a done-for-you project that we set up inside Peter Distinction, whether it's completely custom or whether it's through our academy or our ultimate done-for-you service where you might have some of our pre-made stuff that we tweak and adapt. Whatever it is, we'll generally have this kind of structure. So more than showing you every single group that we have, I want to break down the different kind of core areas. And then I also want to give you a couple of examples of these, why I might use them, and just allow you to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to head back into the group section on here. So we've already seen some of those things already. I've already shown you that lead magnet group, which is probably giving the idea that these groups aren't just for delivering coaching programs, or Peter Distinction is not just delivering coaching programs. In fact, you can actually do all sorts in here. You can deliver lead magnets, you can use it for sales and marketing, you can use it for doing challenges to convert people and so on. I'm going to focus mainly on coaching groups that you might use. We will touch a little bit on customs kind of CRM groups and things like that as well towards the end of this video, but we're going to focus on the coaching side of it. So let's look at these coaching groups. The first thing you might have are onboarding groups. So you can see here we have a couple of different onboarding groups. We have a challenge onboarding group, flagship onboarding group, we have a membership one as well in this content. Let's take a look at the onboarding group here. So your onboarding group purely exists really for the first sort of 7 to 14 days, depending on the type of program that you're delivering to your clients. It delivers things like your welcome videos, the initial forms, your expectations, the kind of education, if you like, during that onboarding, any kind of like onboarding based habit setup that you might have. We'll talk a bit more about habits and that a little bit later on with different types of groups, but there might be certain things you only want them to do during onboarding. That is what's going to go in this group. This is all very short term and it's a structured entry point. We keep this separate because it means that other people maybe want to rejoin your program in the future. You might not need to get them to fill all this stuff in again. Or if you're really thinking about how you structure your online fitness business for the long term, what I'd always recommend you do is have multiple offers where you'd have a front end offer to bring people in, like a flagship program, and then you'd upsell them into a subscription based model on the back end, your back end offer, like a membership, for example, where you can build a subscription up and bring recurring revenue through good retention. In that case, you don't necessarily need to go and onboard somebody again because they're just going to move directly into it. And you want to be able to move smoothly from one program or one package to the next. So by having the same onboarding group, it means that when somebody signs the first program, they get onboarded. If they then upgrade to the next program or even a different version, maybe you've got different tiers, which you can do inside Peter Distinction using packages, you don't need to onboard them again. So more than having all that information in one place, the system will look at it and go, oh, they're already part of this onboarding group, which means we don't need to add them to it again. Because there's a fundamental rule in Peter Distinction that you can only be added to the same group once at the same time, which means that if they're part of that group and you try to add them to it again, the system will know they're already part of it and it won't add them to that group again. If you remove them from the group, you can then re-add it. That's not a problem, and the system can do that. But if they're already part of it, will not get it, which means they won't get duplications or anything like that. Makes it great for upsells, downsells, like cross sells, all those kind of things. Perfect for it. So we have the onboarding separate. The next thing we start looking at is the tracking group. So again, we keep onboarding and tracking separate on purpose. Why? Because tracking is ongoing. So this will have things like steps, body weight, some habits, depending on the type of habits you want to do. If you've got habits that you want to have long term, say over multiple programs, say you've got those tiers again, or maybe you've got those upsells, then we want to start looking at those type of trackings, things that are going to be consistent for all of it. So let's go and take a look at a tracking group in here. So we're leaving the onboarding group. We're going to go to a tracking group. You can see here we have this tracking group, and you'll also notice in brackets I put all main programs. I always think it's a good idea when you're organizing your groups inside P Distinction to name them and have little prompts to remind you what they're for. You know, for someone like me who's in here all the time building out different programs for different trainers that come to work, there's not a done for you service. It's fine because I kind of know what we're doing all the time. Where if you don't do certain things for a long time, like you might be setting up a new package, you might only do that yourself once every year or so. So you might need a reminder or a prompt of how a group's particularly used. So in here, we can actually put results tracking all main programs. So that tells us any main program that we're delivering to our clients, we need to go and include that group. So I'd always recommend having these kind of prompts in place. Just makes life so much easier for you. Now, inside this results tracking group here, we have, again, on the schedule, days after joining, we have little reminders and things notification out. We have documents inside here to explain how to actually go and do the particular tracking itself. And of course, we actually have the tracking itself set up, again, drip feeding out, scheduled, and so on. So this really here allows you to have some tracking that runs across all your programs. So again, if they're upgrading, downgrading, it works fine. They're not going to get any duplicates or anything like that. It also means if you use group stacking in a way to adapt and adjust stuff for individual clients, what you don't want to do is remove the tracking. Let's say if you put all your content into this group with the tracking and you think, I want to change this program for a different client, and then maybe like 2 months into your working with you, and you remove that group with the content in, it's going to delete all that content. It's going to remove it all, including all the tracking data. So by keeping it separate, it means you can always leave them in there, but you can swap out things like workout groups, content groups, which we're going to be looking at next. So talking about content groups, let's head back over to groups and look at the third type or third core type of group we have, which are these educational layers, these content groups. So inside here, we might have things like nutritional resources, mindset videos, maybe technique libraries, course style material, that kind of thing. Now, the content shouldn't be buried inside workouts. This should be in its own structured container. And again, this is for delivery. So let me give you some examples of this. One of them might be a coaching program. So we have a flagship coaching program here. So I'm going to show you two versions. Again, this might help you understand how this content group stuff works. So inside here, we have a flagship program. It's 12-week long, and it's our standard setup. So this here is mainly a nutritional-based coaching program. We have stuff on the schedule. We have our items inside here. We go to coaching. We can see all the coaching modules and so on that are drip feeding out to them. So this is for like a standard diet. So that's just one. That's all it has in it, nothing else in it. But we can have a different version of it. So for example, we can have 3.2b. So this one here is a plant-based version. Exactly the same content. I've just duplicated the group, but I've made some edits to the individual content to cover things around plant-based eating. So the food selection is different, how they actually structure their days is a little bit different, where they get the protein from is a little bit different. Explains more about how having a plant-based diet works with this type of program. So we've made some slight adjustments. So already you can kind of see we have different types of content groups depending on the different types of clients that you might have that sign up into your programs. And by having them separate like this, it means that when someone signs up, they go for the onboarding group, they don't have the tracking going. Based on their onboarding, you can decide which group they actually get added to, whether they're automatically added to, say, the flagship standard, and you notice during their onboarding week that they are a plant-based eater. You can literally go in there and in seconds swap the groups around. The program's going to look identical for them, apart from the individual content itself is going to change slightly to apply for plant-based eating, just in that example. So again, content groups are particularly useful for that type of thing. The other thing we can do inside here into the content groups is also include things like habits. So you could have a 12-month coaching program, like I was showing you earlier, or you could just have individual habits as well. So down here, more than just having individual habit documents and then having to add the document and set up the tracking and so on, we can actually create a particular habit itself and maybe do a 2-week version of it. So with inside here, if we go to schedule and join in, we can have like the document that explains what the habit is, the little tracking for it, a way of personalizing it, and anything else we might want to put in that for that particular habit. And we can have multiple versions of those. So by having multiple versions of these content groups, not only can we go into the system and add them to those multiple habits and they can track them. We can also stack not just on top, but also after each other. So it means we can add somebody to one of these groups, say the habit tracking group for protein, have that run for say 2 weeks for that individual client. And then we can actually go in and tell the system, say, hey, after 2 weeks, I want the eat fresh vegetables habit to start for that particular client. We can set that up in their account, and then that one delivers automatically to them. So by having these content groups, it gives us these different educational layers we can use to deliver services to our clients, adapt it ridiculously quickly, like in a matter of seconds, as long as you have the right system and processes in place. Okay, so that's the habit groups in there. Let's look at the fourth core groups that we tend to use. These are what's called workout groups. So these are where the actual phase programs are that you assign to your clients. So I'm going to give you some examples here. There's a couple of ways we can do this. So if we type in workouts, you can see the different types of workout groups inside here. If you hover over each one of these, you'll be able to see the different ones that are available. So for example, we have automated workouts for fat loss, for an experienced person, 3 days per week. There's a gym-based program over 3 phases, 12-week length. And then we've got different ones down here, automated workout, body comp, 5-day, gym, 3 phases, and so on. And if you open up any one of these groups, you'll notice there's nothing else in here. But if I go to the schedule, days after joining, we have the workouts going out, depending on the type of program it actually is. Everything's scheduled. The progressions are in there as well. So we've actually got the progressions set up. It's all drip feeding out, as you can see on here. We even have in-app messages that go out to remind them every couple of weeks when a new program appears for them and so on. So we have all these automations running, all built into one particular group, so we can move things around quickly and just makes life a lot easier. And if you remember at the start, I mentioned how things copy from that group into the client's account. You can still use these as your base kind of, I guess, template styles. Imagine groups as superpowered templates when it comes to program and workout groups. It means you can then edit and adapt that individual workout for that individual client, even though it's been copied from the group. And the same principle applies what we do with the content. We can stack on top of each other, but we can also stack after each other as well. Okay, so let's go talk about the fifth core group, which is a check-in group. Now, you might be thinking, Ash, we've talked about tracking already. Yes, we have. Tracking and check-ins from an online perspective should always be different, at least from the data we've seen from working with thousands of online personal training businesses now. So the reason we keep this separate is because your tracking is objective. It's basically going to be, it's based on data. So we have data that runs out, you record this is what's happening. And that tracking can work fine, and it can tell you whether someone's getting a good result or not. The problem is, if people can have great tracking, they can track really good results, they can be going in the right direction, everything can be ticking all the boxes, and they can then suddenly fall off the bandwagon. Their adherence can go down. So why does that happen? Well, that happens because they may be getting tired and they can't stick to that particular program long term because it's too much for them. There's too many changes and so on. Now, when you're coaching people in person, that's fine. You can see people when they come through the gym doors. You can make an assessment. You can chat to them and so on. And you make adjustments to the program because, yeah, everything's looking good at the moment, but they can't keep this up. Can't do that online because we can't see them all the time. So what we can do is we can have a separate check-in that asks them how they feel, ask them how they felt the particular week went and so on. They can score their weeks. And we keep this really simple, just using some forms with like 3 very simple questions in it. And we can have this start on a particular day that's on a different day to the tracking. And that basically means that the way they feel about how their week went is not influenced particularly by the results that they've recorded on a separate day. And again, it just makes it a bit more objective to how the actual client's feeling. Now, when it comes to the check-in groups, again, I just literally have the check-in forms inside here, nothing else. Maybe some communications reminders if you need to, depending on the type of system you're using. I always recommend using the traffic light system, which is what we have set up inside here. I can see inside here, if we go to the forms and questionnaires, we actually have all the forms pre-laid out, all drip feeding from, all scheduled, and we actually had them labeled too. Now, the reason we have them labeled and we have it running for an entire year is that we can do a check-in for a year, whether they do a 12-week coaching program first, we would turn back-end offer after, it doesn't matter. Things can drip feed out of them. As they're going through this particular process here, everything just drip feeds out and it tells us what week they're in. We can see very quickly, we're in week 7, we're in week 13, we're in week 16. And we can also then go back and compare because we have those weeks that are in. And these are also added to the schedule by days after joining, as you can see down here. We always start the check-ins on day 1 because we always want day 0. Again, we start this, as I mentioned, on the day we want it to start because we can do that with groups. We always have day 0 as your check-in starts tomorrow. That kind of lets them know exactly how the check-in process is going to work, just to add that clarity for the client first. So they're not just getting caught off guard the next morning. So everything drip feeds automatically from there. So that's our check-in groups. So our 6th group is our support chat group. So one of the things you can do with P Distinction is not only can you just have groups to do the content and so on, you can use groups to organize clients and switch on a group chat. So inside here, this is the only time your clients will know or see the name of a particular group. They will not see it otherwise. And that is when you take a group and you switch on the group chat. Now, I would recommend not particularly putting any content inside this group. I'll keep your group chat separate. The reason I'll keep it separate is because you may want to take or remove people from these different group chats. So don't make life difficult for yourself. Just keep it separate with nothing else in it. All you do is name the group however you want to name it, head into your messenger, type in the group name, and toggle on the group chat down here, and that will switch it on. So the moment you then add someone to here, they'll be able to chat with all of the members of that particular group. So whether you've got 100 people, they can chat like a WhatsApp group chat, or maybe you've got multiple teams, maybe like small groups of like 3 or 5 people that are working together. You can have multiple groups set up for them. In fact, you can even play games with them, which I've seen really work well with some of our clients, where your group do small group training, say in the studio, you're doing a hybrid offer, and you'll team up maybe like 3 or 5 people that work together. You're going to come up with a team name, you'll name that the group, and then they kind of work together and hold each other accountable. So there's lots of cool ways to use groups in that particular scenario. And finally, as I mentioned at the start of this, we also have our kind of upsell transition CRM groups. So this is really if you want to kind of take things up a level and you use P Distinction to deliver certain services. So you don't just have your coaching content, you have things like lead magnets, you have upsells, you have challenges that you might offer to bring people into your main coaching program. In order to organize them, you can set these kind of CRM groups up or these upsell and transition groups. So you can see down here, we have some that are set up, say, making offers to leads. So very simply, if you've got someone that comes into your lead magnet group and you want to offer them a challenge maybe 4 or 5 times a year, you can have a group set up like this. You simply just add all your members from your lead magnet just by typing in lead magnet in, add all those members into here, and it automatically starts out this email sequence that goes out to them to try and bring them into your challenge or into your main coaching program or whatever it is, automating that entire process. Likewise, you can also do things like abandoned cart sequences. So again, with these kind of transition groups, one of the beauties about P Distinction in the packages is if somebody doesn't sign up and you've integrated Stripe into it, it means that they come through, the payment fails, or they bail at the last second. We can automatically add them into your P Distinction as a inactive client, so don't count towards your quota, and then automatically add them to any one of these groups. For example, this abandoned cart flagship group. And by doing so, we then have an email sequence because we can send emails to inactive clients that goes through here to bring them back into your program to go and sign up again, all automatically. We can also use it, again, with CRM groups for things like long-term nurture for past flagship clients, long-term nurture for new leads, so like an email list. We can also use it for asking testimonials in very much the same ways we did the offer for the challenge up here, and many other different things. So hopefully from this video, you can see that groups can be used for quite a few different things, all the way from delivering content to organizing different levels to organizing group chats and building communities, as well as having a CRM style layer inside P Distinction. And the interesting thing is most coaches don't build a lot of these things out at all. A lot of them don't use the groups, a lot of them don't group stack, and hardly any of them use this CRM layer inside P Distinction. And I honestly think that's why clients start to drift instead of ascend inside your programs. So when you structure your account like this, something definitely changes. You stop reacting and the system starts guiding the clients. And that is the key difference when it comes to using groups inside P Distinction. So anyway, I hope this video has been particularly helpful. As always, if you've got any questions, please do let us know in the comments. It's always useful. And please don't forget, if you want to find out more about making the most of your online fitness business, make sure you subscribe to the channel. For any of you watching this that want any help and support with setting up a system just like this, having it adapted and adjusted to suit the needs of your business, you, and of course, the niche and market that you work in, then please do get in touch with us over at peterninja.com, where we specialize in helping you build, launch, and grow successful online fitness businesses using P Distinction and other software too. All right, that's it from me, and I'll speak to you all and see you at the next video.